Hello guys, Tom Yone here from Coding for Youth and welcome to our 20th lesson in our Python series. In this series we've been discussing everything about Python and before we dive into what we have today, I would like to encourage you to keep on, coding, try a bit of code every day, spend at least 1 hour, to learn new things. You can harness the different opportunities online. You can follow the, 100 days of code challenge on Twitter. You can use different resources, to learn whatsoever you want to learn. At the beginning, it may seem difficult, but I tell you, as you keep on learning, keep on practicing, definitely you'll become a master. Now, in this lesson, before we actually begin, I will also like to encourage you to subscribe to the channel to keep on, that will encourage me as you subscribe, and also you can like the video and share it. So thank you guys. So let's look at what we have today. We have been talking about Python. That's all that this series is about. And along the line, we try to do some comparisons with other programming languages. We've been, so far talking about the basics. We started with the rudiments, the introduction. We talked about variables and operators and data types and all that. In fact, in the last lesson, we talked about sets. I would just like to briefly do one thing on sets, and then before we enter into control statements that we have today. Control statement, you use it to, actually, you know, give a particular control to a section of your code, whether it's while statement, if statement, match statement, which we are going to be considering. I would like to uh, check a little thing about sets that we did not discuss in the last lesson. Sets is actually a very unique type in Python. It can be very useful, like what you said in the previous class. Now, I want to say, let's say you have a variable, and this variable is assigned to a string. Uh, Remember that set does not accept duplicate members, and let's say this string is something like this. We can see that u actually there is a duplicate. Now we can actually make each of these letter a member of a set by simply saying, let's say we want to print, we say set using the set function of constructor. We can simply say x, and each member of this string can become each letter of this string can become a member of a set, but it will not allow duplicate member. So if we run this program and look at the command line here, you can see that we now have a set that has 3 members, right? Although we have 4 letters in the text, it's omitted the double u. Okay, so this is what I just wanted to talk about set. Then we'll now talk about we'll talk a little bit about flow control, control statements in Python. Okay, so before I discuss, we go deep into the if statement. I just want to talk a little bit. We've talked about loop the loop statement. We've discussed above. We'll be use for loop in most of the examples we did in the previous lessons, but I've not talked about while loop. Though I'll just do a little brief introduction and then we will talk much about it later. Okay, so while loop also is actually used to execute for control purpose. You use it, you say why a condition is defined or met, something you want something to happen over and over again, okay, until that condition is satisfied. Okay, so let's say we want to, I believe you heard of the Fibonacci series. Let's say we want to print, a sum of, two elements. Okay, so let's say we have a, and we say that this a is equal to 0. That's the initial value of a, and we are given another initial value of b, another element or variable. I will say the value is equal to 1. We are initiating it, these two variables. We can say why a is less than 10. Remember that while statement is a control or flow control statement, and it follows the same syntax with the function if statement, if and for and every other control statement. So it doesn't require something like a bracket. It uses the same pattern, the same syntax. So we have the column, and then we can now, and the indentation, you see that the interpreter is the editor is actually programmed for 4 indents. Unlike other programming language that you need to use, brackets, to group your control to your statement together. Python does not require that. It uses indentation, so it makes the syntax more clear. So we have the y. We say y a is less than 10. We want to do something. We want to print a at this point. The value of a will be printed, and the value of a will be 0, because a is actually 0, right? So the next thing we want to check, the y condition or the y statement will now check what is the next value of a. Now we want to assign a to a new value and want it to be the value of b. So when it comes in the second time, it will have a equal to 1, right? Because b initial value is 1. Now what will be the value of b at the third time when the loop will go from up to bottom? We want to say that we want to equate b, and we want to say that b is equal to the last value of a plus the previous value of b, which is 1, right? So we'll say b. Now if you run this, let's run this statement and see what will be printed. Let's clear the screen and then let's run it. You can see that 0 is printed, then 1, and then the next value of a is what? Is 2. When it comes back again, the next value of a is going to be 4, and then when you print again, it's going to be 8. Now because because 8 is the least value that is, or the maximum value that is less than 10, it will stop printing. Okay, so we can actually do this to a larger value. You can say 100, and then in fact we can even print this on a single line by saying end. I'll equate it to something like this. If we run this, you can see that it is printed on a single line. Now let me clear this screen so that you see better what I'm talking about. So I will run this. You can see the value here now. You see 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. Okay, so that's the little I want to talk about the y statement, and then let's talk about the if else statements. Now, let me say if else statements in Python. So we've talked about the for loop. So Python condition and if else statements. Now it's when we are talking about, when we are using if statements, of course we'll talk about logical operators, and we've discussed about logical operators in our operators series. That should be lesson, I can't really remember, but if you go back, if you check within the series, you should see the one that talks about our logical operators. Okay, so we have the equals, which is defined like this, the equal sign, the equals operator rather, equals, and we use double equal in Python. We also have the not equal, and that is actually like this, exclamation sign. Then we have the less than, and that is actually like this. We have the greater than, and that is that sign, angle bracket, and then we have less than or equal to. Actually put this on a single line, but let me just introduce the logic operators that we'll be using with with the if and if else statement. So we have less than or equal to, which is less than or equal to, we have greater than equal to. Greater than equal to is going to be like this. Then the okay, so let's look at, these are the operators we'll be using with the the if statement, and this condition can be used in several ways. Okay, and we can combine both the if statement, the loop statements, okay, together. Now, so looking at the if statement, let's look at an example. So let's say we have a variable and we give it an initial value of 33, and we have another variable and we give it an initial value of 200, we can say if b, which is variable b, is greater than a. Of course, in this case, we know that b is actually greater than a. We want to say print b in a string, b is greater than a, right? Of course, and that will be printed because b is actually greater than a. Am I right? That's correct. Okay, so we have, if we run this statement, we can see that b is actually greater than 8. This is greater than a. So b is actually greater than a. You can see that it's printed here. Now, in this example, we use two variables a and b, which are used as part of the if statement to test whether b is actually greater than a. Okay, and we know that as a is 33 and b is 200, the condition, the if statement will be printed because b is actually greater than a. Now, indentation is very important, so we can see that in the if statement, after the column, every other thing that you want to be in the same block with the if statement must come, 3 indents, 4 indents, or any as we wish. So it will be executed. Now let's talk about the if. Now, in most programming language, like in JavaScript, after you have the if statements, the next thing you have is maybe you want to test another condition, you have else if. Okay, and then you test another condition. Okay, but in Python, you will use a different statement altogether. In Python, we use we use another statement. Let's say we use elif like this to test for another condition, and then finally we can have an optional else statement. Okay, so that's how Python if statement is structured. Okay, so now let's look at an example. The same example we looked at. Let's say we give a variable a and we say it's equal to 33, and we have another variable b and we say this is equal to 200. We can say if b is greater than a, we want to print b is greater than a, right? B is greater than a. Now, we want to test for another condition. We want to say elif or elsif in other programming language. Elif a is equal to b. I want to print a and b are equal. Okay, so in this condition we'll see that this first print statement will actually be printed, but we'll not check when we change the value. So let me clear this and run this statement. If I run this program, I will have b is greater than a. Now, what if I now say a is also equal to 200? You see that the second statement will be printed, the second condition will be met. So we say a and b are equal, right? Because a and b are both 200. Now we can test for another condition. We can say, what if in this case the condition now is let's say b is equal to, let's say it's equal to 5, a is equal to 500. You see that nothing will be printed because we did not specify such condition, what we want to happen if that is a condition. So that's where the else statement, which is optional, comes in. Also, it depends what the structure of your else statement will depend on the condition you're testing for. If you're testing for more than one condition, maybe you're testing for just 2 conditions, you can use just your if statement and else statement. If you're testing for more conditions or more than more than two conditions, the if statement will be very, very useful. So now, let's say we want to give a general condition. If that's the case, in fact, there's another control statement we'll be looking at, which is called the match, similar to the switch case in other programming languages. Okay, so let's say in the last condition, which is optional, we want to say, okay, print A is greater than B, right? So in this case, the three conditions are met. The first one is either A is greater than B or B is greater than A. So either way, okay, so, or they are equal. So the three conditions are met. So if we clear this, the three conditions are actually, provided for. So we see that A is actually greater than, I don't know why I'm spelling greater than now, that's an arrow. So we can see that A is actually greater than B, right? Okay, so that's the very usefulness of the if statement. Actually, we can write this in a shorthand. Like in the first condition, we can just simply say, we can write it in a way like we can say if A is greater than B, like this. We can just say print on a single line, and it will still go. We can say A is greater than B. Okay, and if we run these statements, if we run this program, you can see that it went through. Let me clear this. Okay, we can also have a shorthand for the if else statements. We can have something like in this case, this is how it will look like. You can say print. You can say print A if A is greater than B. Okay, S print B. Okay, that's a shorthand. You can use this as a shorthand. You can say that the print statement actually comes before the condition. So we have the print statement on the left for the first condition, and then the print statement on the right for the second condition. And the if the condition is at the middle. So if we run this program, you see that B is printed. We say that print A if A, no, this is B rather. This is B. A should be printed. Okay. We say print A if A is greater than B, else print B. So that's the case. So now let's look at combining using our what operator is that? We discussed that before. The AND, we've talked about that's actually the logical operator. The comparison operator, the one I was talking about earlier, is actually the comparison operator. So the logical operator is actually the AND or not. We also looked at the identity operator and all that. So now let's look at using the logical operator in combination with our comparison operator. This point of correction, there is actually comparison operator I was actually talking about earlier. So we're going to be looking at using both. We're going to be using the combination of our logical operator and the comparison operator. So we'll start with the and there's the AND logical operator or keyword. Okay, so we can use this actually to combine conditional statements together. So let's say we have A and we say that this variable is equal to 200, and we have B and we say that this is equal to 33, and then we have C and we say this is equal to 400. Okay, we can actually say if A is greater than B and C is greater than A. Okay, we want to print, and we say both conditions are true if they are true. So we are testing if A is greater than B and C is greater than, you can see in this case now, the two conditions have to be true for the program to run, for this the print statement to execute. So unlike the or that we'll be looking at, the two conditions must not be true. If one is true, then the statement, the print statement, or the statement behind, or whatsoever thing that you want to happen here will be executed. But in this case, these two conditions must be true for this program, for this print statement to print out. So we have A and B, and we say A is equal to 200, B is equal to 33, and C is equal to 400. So A is actually greater than B, but it's less than C. So we say here and say A is greater than B. That condition is actually true because A is greater than B and C is greater than A. Of course, this condition is also true because C is greater than A. So if we print this, you see that the print statement, the program will execute. So we have both conditions are true. Okay, so now let's look at the or. If we just change this to or, I will print, it will still print because both conditions are actually true, so it will print. But now if we say less than, I will put less than here, which is not true, and then I'll use the and again to see this, to see that nothing will be printed out because the condition is not, the two conditions are not true. Okay, but if I change this to or, one of the conditions is actually true, so therefore the or statement will be printed. Now we can have a nested if. We can have a nested if statement whereby we have another if inside another if statement. So I'll just do an example. Let's say we have x and we say that this x is equal to, I'm talking about nested now. We say, let's say this variable is equal to 40. Now we can say if x is greater than 10, we want to print above 10. Okay, now we'll come down here. We say if there's a nested if, you can see that the if is inside the other if, and is starting at the the indentation is actually a part of the block of the original or the first if. So say if x is greater than 20, okay, we can say and also print and also above 20. Okay, we can then have our s print but not above . Okay, so if we run this program, let me clear this. Now if we run the program, we see two statements, that two print statements are actually executed there. above 10 and also above 20, right? So let's change this value to let's say 15 and print. We can see that the first condition, which is this, will be printed because x is above 10 but not above 20. So you can see the importance of having this nested if. We can use it to test, actually more condition. Now, if statement can also be empty. If you, for some reason, have an if statement with no contents, now we just use the keyword pass. Okay. Now we use that to avoid an error. Just like you're defining an empty function. Let's say we have a function defined, and then we say this function we add two numbers, and then maybe we have two variables inside, and then we don't do anything, and we come here and try to run. We try to run this. Of course, an error will be generated, right? We have an error. We have indentation error now, but if we come here, we can just say pass, and then if we run this, nothing will happen. Okay, so the pass keyword is actually used, to ensure that there is no error. Okay, where we use it. We can also use this with the if statement. We can come here. We can say if b is greater than a. You can just say pass. If we don't use pass, we'll have an error. Okay, then b is not defined. Okay, now we will define a. Let's say we have a is equal to 33 and b is equal to 100. Now we can actually run this and no error will occur. Okay, so pass is actually used to it's actually a keyword or a statement that is used to avoid getting error in our program. So so far I would like to stop here in this lesson. So far we talked about the control statement in Python. We looked at the while, the if statement, the if, and then the else statement. Maybe in the next class I'll talk about the match, because I've actually spent more time here. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you guys in another lesson.